You can see that we have some folks out in Midland, Linda Hamlin and Wendy Leonard in Longview, a lot of folks in the Valley, and all over the state, and we really appreciate you joining us. And like I said, I'm not going to go through the list of everybody, but you will be sent a list, an attendee list after this. Make sure your name is on it so you are counted as attending this call. But I am, like I said, going to do a roll call of those that are on the governance committee to make sure that we can take a vote. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that list right now. Do we have Christina Folsom on the line? If I call your name, if you don't mind writing in and letting me know you're here, I would appreciate that. Carol Gresham, can you let me know if you're here? I don't see your name. Okay. Oh, sorry, you are here. Thank you for joining us. Kelly Stallings, I know, is not here. Sandra Moore, are you here? Yes, thank you, Sandra. Jennifer Laurent, are you joining us today? And yes, you are. Thank you. And Tracy Sepulvedo? Well, it looks like maybe Tracy's not here, but I am still a voting member until October, so that makes 4, and that's 4 out of the 7. So we can vote on the one item we have up for vote today. So thank you, the 3 of you, for joining us for this meeting. So let me get back to the agenda. Okay. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about COC participation, and then we're going to review some of the COC application documents, some of the things that we talked about last month. We'll quickly go over, and then I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the COC renewal project evaluation tool and the meeting we had this morning about that. And then I'm going to hand it off to Mary, and she's going to talk about some COC governance items. She's going to go over what is a local homeless coalition and point out where we are on our governance timeline so far this year, and show that she's going to show that we have actually made progress on some of our goals and what to look forward to for the remainder of the year. Okay, COC participation. We recently submitted data to HUD as part of our housing inventory chart update and our point-in-time report for 2015. You may have been receiving calls from us, or folks that work in your agency may have been getting these calls in which we were asking for an update on your housing inventory. For example, we were asking for an update on the number of beds that you had for certain programs and an update of who was staying in those beds and how many people that were there on the night of January 22nd. Well, we used all that data for a report that was due to HUD on May 15th, and we did submit that report, and I wanted to show that to you. And here is that report. We turned in the report to HUD on the 15th, and on that report there were around 10,000 people that we reported as homeless on the night of the point in time for 2015. After we turned it in, we started noticing some issues with the data. So we asked HUD if they would open it back up for us so we could revise the data and resubmit. So they did give us that opportunity. Unfortunately, they set the deadline for today. Lindsay has been working furiously on getting all of the data in and ready for submission later after this call. And so we will resubmit the data, and it's going to be For a lesser amount of people, it's probably going to, the number is probably going to end up around 7,000 for total point in time for 2015. So when we get that report finalized and submitted, we'll pull down the PDF copies of that and we will submit that to you. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. One of the other issues that I wanted to talk about under COC participation that I don't have on here is something that has come out since we put together the agenda. HUD has made available to the Balance of State, specifically, a Sharpening Your COC Program Skills question and answer session. This is a webinar that HUD is offering states and regional HUD community planning and development offices in place of the annual startup conferences. So we worked with HUD to get one that was specific to the Texas Balance of State, and we sent out the invitation to this last week. I sent ours out, I think, Friday afternoon. I believe the San Antonio office sent one out a day before, but you all should have received this by now, or at least those of you who have Continuum of Care grant funding should have received this by now. So I would encourage you to go ahead and sign up to be a part of this webinar and participate in this. There will be consultants who work real closely on HUD issues that are leading this training, and they will be able to answer a lot of the detailed questions that you might have. I have been told that a lot of the session will be dedicated to rental assistance and leasing and some of the nuances about those programs. So if you run one of those programs, it's probably really important that you attend. They also will be talking about strategies for finding information on the HUD Exchange website, which if you've ever visited that, you would find useful. If you would find strategies for searching that useful, I would think. So that's two of the things they're going to provide, but they will be presenting other issues on other items, and they will be available to answer your questions on anything COC related. So please sign up. And I know that some regional CPD offices, the ones in San Antonio, Fort Worth, and Houston, I'm sorry, CPD is Community Planning and Development. Some of those offices are saying that they're requiring the COC grantees that are managed through their office to attend. So you should really sign up and attend these webinars. It's just really one webinar, and it's really covering just a finite amount of material, but it's very important. Any questions about that or about the HDX report? Okay. So on to the COC application documents. Last month, I presented to you drafts of 2 documents that had been reviewed by a work group prior to the meeting. And the first was the COC project application RFP, request for proposals. And I presented it to you with a few minor adjustments noted. And since then, I have made those adjustments and a few more. We've made a few more adjustments based on some additional problems we found. But we think it's ready to go. And we are going to go ahead and put it up on our website so you can have it available for your use. I'm going to go ahead and show it to you now. I won't go through it in detail like I did last month, but this is the RFP. You'll notice that there are a lot of to be determined initials all over it, and this is because HUD has still not released the COC, the 2015 COC competition. So once that is released, then we'll be able to fill in some of these dates, and we'll be able to finalize the timeline, which I'll go over in just a second. Not much has changed since I last showed this to you. There's just a little bit more explanation on some points, and some wording moved around just to make this a little bit more readable for you, the potential applicant. So I'm hoping you'll find this useful. So I just want to go to the timeline really fast. Actually, I want to start with this. This table was on the last version, but since then we have changed some of it. There are two big changes. One of them is that we took out the COC planning grant from this priority ranking because HUD has asked us not to include that in the ranking anymore. So our HUD COC planning grant that we apply for every year to fund the work we do with you is not going to be in competition with your housing and supportive service projects. So that makes us very happy. Also new this year in this ranking table is the new reallocated SSO projects for coordinated access. So if a project decides to reallocate their funds and use it for an SSO project for coordinated access, it will be funded here. If there are more than one projects for that, they will be scored and ranked within this category. So that's a little bit of a change from last year. The timeline I want to get to. Now keep in mind again that HUD has not released the grant. So they've not made the funding notice public, and until they do, we don't really know what our deadlines are going to be. But I've revised this based on an assumption that they will release the notice of funding availability on June 1st. If they do that, then this timeline should be very close to what the final timeline will be. We will have to look at some of the deadlines and benchmarks that HUD requires along the way, things that they have mentioned in the NOFA to finalize this, but this is based on a 90-day competition cycle, which is very typical of HUD. So I think this will be pretty close to accurate if they release it on June the 1st. So this is revised since last time, and I think it's a good, you can use it as a guidepost at least if you're considering applying for a new project application, or if you're one of the many projects that are in renewal. You can see that in this scenario, we would have everything turned in to HUD by the end of August. But we will see when they release it. So this will be posted on our website, and I will send it to everyone following this webinar, along with all of the other materials that we discuss. Any questions about the RFP? I'm sorry I'm having to mute everybody. Okay, well, type in your questions as you have them. Okay, next is the COC application for new housing projects, for new projects, this should say actually, because it's possible that we could have a new project that's not housing this year. That was also presented last year with some notes regarding changes that still had to be made. So between that meeting and this one, we have made those changes, and this document is just about ready to go. I think there might be a few items to clean up in regard to some of the grammar, but as far as the substance of it, it's ready to go. So we'll go ahead and post this on the website as well and send it to you as well. This is something that if you are considering applying for new funding, you should really review. And if you're considering reallocating your current funding to create a new project, you should also review, because in both cases you would be under a new application process. So you would need to go ahead and start putting together all of your grant materials, your application materials, as this document outlines. Okay, I have a question that's come in. So this is from Del Ferris with Spindletop Center in Beaumont. And he asks, so we first submit our request through the online eSNAPS form and then create a PDF file of the request and email you the PDF file. Okay, so what he's asking is how do you submit your COC application? And I'll tell you, for renewal applicants, what you do, well, one of the many things that you send to us, I'm sorry, not one of the many, one of the 5 things you send to us is your project application that you complete in eSNAPS. That's for renewal applicants. So you do complete everything in eSNAPS. You save the PDF file in that system, and you send that PDF along with 4 other pieces of information to us for review. And that's under the renewal evaluation process, which I'll go over after this. For new applicants, you complete this questionnaire, this application, and so you can go ahead and get started on it even before HUD releases their NOFA. Now, if you've ever been in eSNAPS and filled out a project application in there, you'll notice that the questions here are nearly identical to the questions that you'll see in eSNAPS, and that's on purpose. The reason for that is so an agency can go ahead and get started using this form, and that will give them a head start for filling out all of their information on eSNAPS. Now, in Dell's case, they may be applying for a new permanent supportive housing project. He should get this and start filling in all the information and starting to gather the documentation that they will need to have, but then also sign up into eSNAPS and start getting set up there and perhaps filling out the project application there as well. It's just going to be helpful to get this done and submitted to THN as early as possible so we can give you feedback before you really get into the meat of the eSNAPS application. So these questions are almost exactly like what you see in eSNAPS, and it is a long questionnaire, but it is something that will prepare you for your work in eSNAPS. And it has been updated a little bit since last month, but really it's just been updated with things like, let's see, I'll get to the budget. So you have like a footnote here that's related to supportive service projects for coordinated access. So we have information that's been added to this that will be in regard to any agency that is applying and using reallocated funds for an SSO project. SSO is supportive service only project for coordinated access. So I think this is about ready to go, and we'll put that on the website and also send that to you. Both this form, this application, and the RFP were both reviewed and voted on last month, so they've already been approved. We just had to make a few minor edits before posting everything. Any other questions about either the RFP or the new application. Okay, we do have a question that's come in. Amanda Dolman from Corpus. She says, one area that she's aware of that's currently not under FMR guidelines. Sorry, let me read this question before I try to recite it to everybody here. Okay, yeah, what she's asking is about FMR rates, fair market rates for certain areas. If you can't find that data with what HUD has provided through the HUD user website, get in touch with us and we will try to locate that information for you. And if there is any problems identifying exactly what the FMR rate is, what the fair market rate is for certain areas, and we can't find it on any of the materials HUD has given us, we will ask HUD through the Ask a Question portal. So hopefully that works for you, Amanda. And then finally, another question about this. Dell asked, when will the application be finalized and posted for you all to download and work on? And I am going to put that up as soon as we're done here. I will make a few, like I said, minor cosmetic edits, but I will put that up and it'll be ready for your download, but I'll also email that to you. So you'll be able to start working on it right away. I'll keep it in the Word format so it's easy for you, or I'll send it to you in the Word format so it's easy for you to work off of. Any other questions about those two documents? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the, the COC renewal project evaluation. This is not worded very well here, but this morning we met with a group of, I believe almost everyone was with a Continuum of Care funded project, but we met with a COC renewal evaluation work group. And what we did is we reviewed the form that we have used for the past. Well, we reviewed the form we created in 2013, revised in 2014, and have just slightly revised for 2015 to get their input and vote on. So let me show you that. So we went over this renewal project evaluation, and I pointed out that, again, this was created in 2013, and if for those of you who were around and worked on this, we did a lot of work on it that year. What we did is we used a similar form from the Ohio Balance of State Continuum of Care, and we revised that for our specific situation here in Texas. And that worked well for 2013. But in 2014, we decided to align our prioritization process more with HUD. So we reconvened as a work group and revised this form so that it would align more with HUD. And that is primarily in regard to the ranking process and ranking within project categories. And I'll get into that in a second. And then earlier today, we met again and we looked at this slightly revised version. And at the end of it, I asked everyone to vote on whether or not we would submit it to the COC Governance Committee for a vote. And I'll show you the result of that vote in just a second. This form is much the same as it has been in the past. The evaluation process is really based on measuring data from 3 categories. The first is project participant impact. So under that, we're looking at the housing stability. So how effective is the project at helping clients gain housing stability? How effective are they at helping clients access income and benefits? And are they able to reduce the time that someone is homeless? The next category is meeting the community need. We want to make sure that these projects are doing just that, meeting that local need, and they're using their dollars effectively. They are using the beds that they were funded to use, and they are targeting that hard to serve population and serving them well. And then finally, we look at project capacity. So we want to make sure that these projects are meeting all their reporting requirements with HUD. They're spending their funds and capturing their data and capturing it accurately. And then also that they have sufficient leverage of their project. They're not relying solely on HUD Continuum of Care funds. And we also need to make sure that there are no unresolved audit or monitoring findings from HUD visits. So we use data from each component of these 3 categories in our overall ranking, and that ranking is used, in our overall scoring, and that scoring is used to rank projects by project category. I pointed out today that most of the data for this is gathered from the annual performance reports. So projects will send us their most recently submitted performance reports, and that data is inputted into our scoring tool. But we also look at the HUD audit and monitoring findings. We look at the LOCKSS draws of each program. LOCKSS stands for Line of Credit Control System. So what we're doing there is trying to determine whether or not those projects are using the funds that HUD provides them. And we identify whether or not these agencies fully participated in the housing inventory chart update and point in time count. And finally, we look at how much leveraged support these projects are gathering. So that's very important to HUD. They're expecting the projects that they fund to gain community support, either in in-kind donations or in-kind support or cash support. They do not want projects and communities to rely solely on their funding. One of the changes that I talked about from the 2014 competition, or one of the changes we made right before the 2014 competition, was that we aligned our prioritization process with HUD's, and that meant that we identified the different categories of housing and services that HUD is already prioritizing from first to ninth in this case. So what we do is we look at all of our projects, and those that are renewal permanent housing, so under that is permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing, all of those projects will be in the first category. Now within that category, those projects are ranked according to score. So we still use the scoring tool, but those projects are ranked within that category according to their score. And it goes down from there. So next you have the new reallocated permanent supportive housing, new reallocated rapid rehousing, then transitional housing. We have a lot of transitional housing. So of the 15 or 20 projects we have in there, all of those will be in this category, but they will be ranked by their score. So those that are ranked closer to the top of that category are better off and in more of a reliable or more of a guaranteed position of funding than those in the bottom of that category. So this is a change that we employed last year, and it's one we'll continue with. And then there's just some more information about the things that project applicants will have to submit this year, and they're much the same as last year. The only big change, actually, the only big change, well, not even big change, the only change that we really made was to the appendices. We did make changes, as I pointed out in the RFP. We made changes to this table in that we took the COC planning grant out of the rankings because HUD has indicated that's what we should do. That will not be ranked anymore. And we have included the new reallocated supportive service only projects for coordinated access in the ranking. So those are the two big changes on the renewal evaluation form this year. We did update the list of those projects that are up for renewal in 2015. So that's here in Appendix A. And then in Appendix B, you have the criteria and scoring tool. And I explained to those at the meeting that under each major category that I had talked about before, project participant impact, meeting community need, and project capacity, you have data points in which we gather data to score. So we look at, for example, the data point length of stay of 6 months or longer of clients in programs that are permanent supportive housing. And we identify what their percentage of success is. We measure that against a standard that the COC has established for each of these data points. And that is how each project is scored. So if they meet the standard or exceed the standard, they receive 10 points. If a project applicant has a performance that's within 75% of the standard, they receive 7.5 points. Unfortunately, if the project is 74% of the standard, they will receive 0 points. So we're really rewarding those that are high performing and those that are right at the cusp of being high performing. Those that are medium performing or lower performing, those are the ones that do not get the points. So it's a pretty competitive process, but we found that it's pretty fair with the projects that we've ranked in the past. So you can read a lot of the detail in here when you receive this form and the scoring tool. The scoring tool is completed with TH and staff's help and our renewal evaluation committee. And ultimately, that committee is the one that establishes the final scores for each project and uses that for the final ranking. That final ranking is then presented to the COC Governance Committee, and that Governance Committee will decide whether or not to approve that final ranking. So until that is done, nothing is submitted to HUD. No rank order of projects will be submitted to HUD. So it's ultimately the vote of the COC Governance Committee that moves this thing forward for the renewal project applicants. So any questions about this form? Okay. I did ask for the work group that was at the meeting this morning to give their input on this, and they did provide some input, and then I asked them to vote on whether or not they wanted to approve for the COC Governance Committee's consideration, and they did vote to approve that. Sorry, I had the vote here ready to go. I don't know what happened to that. I'm sorry, but they did vote to approve that. It was unanimous. So everyone in attendance did vote for the COC Governance Committee to take a vote on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and start out by asking each one of the folks that are present if they approve this as the final renewal evaluation. I'm sorry, let me say this right. Renewal project evaluation form. So, Carol Gresham, how do you vote? Do you vote to approve this as the 2015 renewal project evaluation form? Oh yes, I'm sorry, you are muted. Let me unmute you guys. Okay, and Carol, how do you vote?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. And Jennifer, how do you vote? Well, we're waiting on Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer's mic is not working. She typed in, she voted to approve. And then finally, Sandra, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and Tracy has joined us, so Tracy votes yes, and then I vote yes, so that's 5. We only needed 4, so we have voted to make this renewal project evaluation final. I will post that along with the RFP and the new project application to our website, and I will submit all of that to you via email later today. Thank you. Okay, so that's everything to do with the COC application documents. We're next going to go to COC governance, and I'm going to hand this off to Mary. She's going to talk about what a local homeless coalition is and then give us an update on the governance timeline. So you're unmuted, Mary.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. I do have the document ready to go. If you'll switch over screen control. Great. Okay. Oops. Sorry, wrong button. So you'll see what we have here is a beginning description of what a homeless coalition is. You guys talked about this at the summer COC board meeting in April. And so I took those comments from both the presenters, all the 4 of the presenters who are from local homeless coalitions, and then also those of you who attended the meeting and responded to the poll questions that were given during that meeting. And we've also gotten some feedback from other balance of state COCs from around the country to see how they are working with their local homeless coalitions. And so we don't have an actual draft definition yet. What we got is somewhat of a skeleton of items that we want to try and include in a description that eventually you guys will approve of, and then this description will be used when you on your local level work to determine what your coalition is, who all is involved in it, and then also when you select your representative from your coalition who will serve on our representative planning group, which is the second largest body on our COC org structure. So in other words, in order for you to have a representative to the representative planning group, which is one of the decision-making bodies, your local planning group will need to meet these criteria that we all agree on of a local homeless coalition. So I briefly just started here with a local homeless coalition is a group of people who meet regularly to plan and coordinate housing and services, strategically use resources, evaluate performance, and conduct education to prevent and end homelessness. And a local homeless coalition, in many cases, is like a mini continuum of care. So we might consider adding some of the specific requirements that HUD has for continuum of care that we want to be doing not only on the COC level, but we want you to be doing, and you all want to be doing, in your local coalition. So, just starting out with a little description of what a homeless coalition is. Then we get into more details. You'll see here everything from what might we call these groups. I know not all of you call your coalitions. They may be called a regional committee or a planning body or a subcommittee of another planning group. So we will all agree on what it needs to be. The next big section is governance. You'll see this looks very much like what our overall COC governance looks like. You'll have a representative, or you'll be able to have a representative to the planning group. And I just realized I did not include, you may in fact be able to have two. One rep who is currently or formerly homeless person. So there's the opportunity for every coalition to have actually two representatives on this representative page. If one is a currently or formerly homeless person. So think about that when you're deciding on what you might include in this description. Also, we want to make sure that on your local homeless coalition, you're going to have a committee called the Coordinated Access Transition Team, or CAT. And all of our 7 pilot communities that we're currently working with to implement coordinated access have already set up their CAT team. And that is how we will also have the rest of you working when we implement coordinated access in your community. You'll have this local kind of oversight group called the CAT team. And you'll see in green, I have Sophia's name here and my name here. That was where I was just trying to identify one of our PA staff members who is going to be the primary either contact person or support person for that particular piece of the description. And right now in yellow, I've got ones that the in-house person might be ones that we could work to be requirements, whereas the rest of them that are not in yellow could just be more guidelines, but not necessarily requirements. And here, coalition documents. This is something that Hannah talked about at the April meeting, but I'm not sure exactly what those were that I was able to send. But I'm thinking things like bylaws, governance structure, voting procedures, that sort of thing. So we'll follow up with her if we can get those. We'd also want to consider maybe some guidelines around membership. Who might be members? How are they selected? What are their terms? What are their roles and responsibilities? Will there be a membership fee? Any requirements to maintain membership? Any code of conduct? Also, within your local homeless coalition, you might talk about having board members or not, and having officers or not. And again, same kind of thing. How are they selected? What are their terms? What would they do? And you might also choose to have committees. Some examples would be a program committee, performance or data, pitch count, governance, membership, finance. Now, some of you probably already have a lot of these areas, and you might have a structure set up that is very much what we've already been talking about. But we know in other communities, these processes aren't quite that formal. Also, we might talk about staff. If your local homeless coalition would want to do an annual work plan with goals. And then if you do, We'd also be interested in seeing an annual report. Like, how did you do on your work plan and your goals that prior year? Also, some groups are fortunate enough to have facilities for their coalition. And finally, we put in their coverage area. For example, some local homeless coalitions cover one city or one county. Others cover several counties. In some of our balanced states, CNCs from around the country, we heard that they break down their big COC into public housing authority jurisdictions, or in some cases it was Department of State Health Services or TDHA regions in our case, community development regions, several different kinds of ways that we could determine coverage area. All right, so those are kind of the nuts and bolts of government. Our next big section we're thinking is activity. So what might your local homeless coalition do? And again, the items identified in yellow are ones that we were thinking might be great possibilities for requirements. So for example, hold meetings, and then we would need to have everyone take attendance and keep the minutes in order to fulfill grant requirements and then submit those to us. And I know a number of you already do that and send them to Eric every time you meet. Frequency, at least quarterly, might be a great frequency of time to meet. How are you going to meet? In person, via webinar? Will you have an agenda? Anyway, you can see all of these kinds of details, but the main activities would be hold meetings, plan and coordinate housing and services in the local level. And there's a lot of groups that we consider having participate in that housing and service delivery and planning. Conduct a point in time count using the UOSCOC process, and review project performance. And that's an area that we're going to be focusing a lot on this year, even more so than we have been. And our HMIS team is coming up with all kinds of neat tools that we think will be really helpful for all of us to get a better understanding of performance and improving our performance. Then some other optional ones: conduct a homelessness awareness in a case and education activities, which we know a lot of you are already. Create a plan to end homelessness, develop projects, write collaborative applications for funding, maintain a resource and referral guide, and inform attendees of agency and community happenings. And a lot of the activities on this list did in fact come from the presentations we heard at the April board meeting. So that's where we are in terms of looking at local homeless coalitions right now. Certainly, this is all up for discussion, and we'd love to get your feedback between now and the next meeting, with the thought that we might have a draft available for vote at the next meeting, so that you guys can write the definition that you want, go ahead and get it going in your community if it's not already, and select your representatives in time for our new fiscal year to start. All right. Are there any questions right now? Anything you want to add?
Well, I just wanted to add that I don't want to survey you guys to death, but we may be sending out a few more polls about this just to get a little bit more clarification as we build out this draft, so that we can have the best document ready for you to take a vote on. And like we said last month, our goal with this is just to identify what our acceptable parameters are for a local homeless coalition. We're not trying to narrowly define what a coalition is. We just want to come up with a good window definition, I guess is a way to say it, or good parameters of what a homeless coalition is. One that will fit our largest community, but also fit our smallest community. And once we get that established, we're going to be able to do other things like establish what is a representative, and then start to build in some more consistency across our COC. So that's all I was wanting to add.
Yeah, I think that's a very good clarification. And I also don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by what we currently got on the paper, because again, all of it is up for discussion and negotiation, and you guys as COC members will be the ones giving the input and voting to approve this. So if there's something in there that just absolutely won't work for your community, we certainly want to know that. All right, well, if that is the last conversation on that, I'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is the governance milestone. You'll remember that earlier this year, and late last year actually, we were talking a lot about the governance charter and the memorandum of understanding that we as THN, the lead agency for the COC, and THN board have insight regarding the responsibilities and roles of THN as the lead agency. That and the charter was approved by the COC board in March. So that was our first step. Our next one is what we've been working on in May. Again, this definition of coalition. And hopefully we will finalize that again by the time we have our next COC board meeting, which is June 24th. Then we will be asking you all to select your representative, and we'll be collecting the names of the contact information of those official representatives. And also in June or July, we will work with you to propose a process for selecting the COC board members. Which members of the COC are we going to, what process are we going to use to select those board members for the upcoming year, which starts in October? And so certainly we want to just create an opportunity for you all to have input and design that process for yourselves, but we'll facilitate it. And then that board, technical board members, will be the decision makers for the next year. But we don't have a process right now for selecting them, so we'll draft one. And then again, they will be elected and sit down here in October at the fall general membership meeting. That's our second of 2 required general membership meetings that every COC must hold per year. From July through September, we will actually carry out the process of selecting those board members, which we're assuming is going to include something along the lines of getting candidates, preparing biographical information, and then doing the mechanics of preparing for a vote. Our new fiscal year starts in September, and again, we will have the actual vote to elect board members at the October meeting, and their terms will start immediately, and they will end at the following September 30th of 2016. So those are our big milestones from a governance perspective that we're working on. And so we just kind of let you know the timeline that we have in mind to accomplish our next step toward getting fully compliant from a governance perspective and up to see where our COC is required to be by habit. Any questions on that?
Doesn't look like any questions are coming in. But everyone feel free to do that. Go ahead and send those questions in. Did you have anything else?
That's it.
So one of the things that you talked about with governance update was our work toward this October, when we will be selecting those new representatives, or at least identifying the parameters for those representatives. One of the things that I wanted to point out with that is, as we're working towards that, we want to start to improve some of our technology, not only for us, but for our communities. And we want to encourage participation in meetings like this. So we want to make sure that once we have those representatives established, or as we're about to establish those representatives, we want to make sure to get them the technology they need to fully participate in these types of meetings. So if those representatives need something like a mic and headphones, or maybe possibly even a new computer, things like that, we want to provide those to our representatives so we can have this be more of a COC meeting in the way that other continuums of care hold meetings. So at least that's my hope. Maybe I'm hoping for too much, I'm not sure, but that's what I want us to get to. And I think all of this work will help strengthen what we're doing here. One of the things that I wanted to point out, and let me get back to the agenda and I'll get back to what you're seeing now. Sorry, I'm not sure where my agenda went, but oh, here it is. Okay, so we're going to talk about next steps, but before we talk about that, since we were talking a lot about the COC application and the documentation that we've made available to help you with your application, either a new application or renewal application, I did want to point out two things. Mary actually had pointed them out earlier, and I just caught them. We'd want to make sure that you understand that everything that we have in these forms could be changed depending on what HUD releases when they release the NOFA. So if there are things that we did not expect HUD to announce, or some new regulations that they have when they release the NOFA, we will have to change these documents and the language in these documents to reflect those changes and those updates by HUD. We're not anticipating that there will be major changes, but if there are, obviously we will have to change these documents. And we wanted you all to know that as we get closer to the release of this, and most likely after this NOFA is released by HUD, we will be providing for you training materials, webinars like this, but webinars really dedicated to specific items, and one of those will be eSNAPs. And then also we want to make available one-on-one TA opportunities. So if you were involved with us last year, you know that I made available slots nearly every day during the COC competition, in which you could sign up and spend 30 minutes with us talking about your application, just asking questions, showing us, because we do it via webinar, showing us what you're dealing with in your project application and getting our advice on that. I'm going to make those TA slots available again, so I'll be sending those out to you pretty soon, and you can start signing up for those. I will say, if you do sign up for those, please try to sign up for them at least one day in advance, so we have time to set up all of the webinar details and we can get that to you, so we're not rushed when we set that up. So we just wanted to make sure you understand that we will be there to help you along the way throughout this competition. And our help, our offer to help goes beyond those with just COC grant funding. It also extends to the rest of you, and we will definitely help you with whatever we can in your applications, your funding requests, your program setup, whatever it is that you need help with. So please ask us for that help as much as you need. Okay, so next steps. Our next meeting will be June 24th, and like Mary said, hopefully we'll have some type of draft definition or description of what a local homeless coalition is that you can vote on. And I'm sure there will be a lot of items related to the COC application by that time. And one of the items may be the RFP and the update on the timeline because they haven't released it. But I'm thinking that by that point we will be in the middle of the application process, so that will probably be a big topic of that meeting. So look forward to that, and please join us for that. And I do not have anything else on the agenda today. So this has been a pretty quick meeting, 1 hour, but I will stick around for any questions you might have. But if you don't have any, thanks for joining us, and go ahead and get back to your busy day and busy week, and have a great close out to your May. Thank you all for joining us.